So, welcome to the first big education conversation that I think has happened in Essex, and certainly the first one that's been part of Essex 2020. We are running this in a webinar format as we've had such a great interest. So whilst you'll be kept on mute and we can't see you, don't see that as an act of censorship. This is simply so that we don't have 100 different bits of noise competing with one another. But as I said, please use the chat bar and the Q&A so that you are very well included within the proceedings. We will have plenty of time in the second half to try and answer as many of your questions and share some of your experiences as we can. So this session is being recorded and live streamed. It'll be live streamed on Facebook. So if you've got friends and family that you think would benefit from this, but they haven't got a Zoom ticket, by all means point them towards the Always Possible Facebook group. But if for any reason you're not, you want to remain invisible to the streaming and the Facebook, then just keep yourself hidden. But it's much easier to do that in this format. So my name is Richard. I'm Richard Freeman, and I'm really delighted to be facilitating this afternoon's conversation. I'm the Chief Exec of Always Possible and oversee a lot of the coordination of Essex 2020, something I'll talk a little bit more about in a moment. I'm also a change maker for the Big Education Conversation movement. So I'm really pleased to be running this session as a Big Education Conversation event. Again, I will talk a little bit more about what that means and how you might want to get involved at the end of the webinar. But for now, this afternoon, what we're focusing on is keeping the wow, sharing ideas, knowledge about practical science and creativity in action. We are all experiencing a situation none of us could ever have imagined. Those of you working in formal education, I hear and feel your pain with your exam schedules, teaching routines completely out of whack, bubbles and clusters keeping students apart, teachers, children and young people having to navigate places of learning in very different ways to what we're used to. So we're here in solidarity, but we also recognise some of the challenges for teaching practical subjects like art and science, and that's what we want to explore. The privilege of having Essex 2020 running at the moment is that we are already thinking, and we were already thinking, about how to use new ways to engage people of all ages in science, technology, engineering, the arts and maths. For these subjects, we want everybody in Essex to see them as experiential, aspirational, a little bit magical, but mostly useful, personally useful to them. And so this afternoon, we want to scratch the surface of some of the brilliant community and grassroots projects, some of the innovators and thinkers, those who've been trying out practical ideas that have underpinned the Essex 2020 programme to date, and to make it easy for schools, colleges and universities to tap into what we think is a vast treasure trove of helpful resources and people as well that you have on your doorstep. We're also going to be making decisions about what's next and what happens beyond this year, what happens beyond the Essex 2020 project. We want to extend the successes, the collaborations, the conversations, and also we want to kickstart some of the things that we haven't been able to do because of COVID. There are still many questions about what that looks like, but we want to know what collaboration with education providers can look like. And what we do know is that education and STEAM learning resources and projects will be at the core of whatever happens in 2021 and beyond. So part of today is also about us listening to you and hearing what you're needing and what you're asking for. And what we will have at the end of the session, I'll talk through an opportunity for people in all forms of education to help us shape what the project legacy looks like. What we also know is that many of the flagship moments that would have marked out this year will instead happen next year, such as the Estuary Festival and the British Science Festival. We were very sad not to have either of those this year, but what this means is there's an opportunity for those in education across Essex to have a bit more time to get involved in those and to help shape what those programmes can look like for next year. So I'm going to give a little quick whistle-stop context of Essex 2020. I don't assume that everybody's been involved so far or even knows quite what it is, but I'll do that quickly, and then I'll introduce our fantastic panel of very special guests. and they're each going to tell you a little bit about their work, bringing together science and creativity in interesting ways. And then, as I said, we will open it up for a wider conversation. Okay. So, done that bit. Oh, yes, just say if you want to talk about on social media anything that's being discussed today, please use the hashtag Essex 2020, and you can at Essex_2020, and the social media team will do what they do well. So Essex 2020 is a real team effort. It's a partnership. It's lots of different big stakeholders working together. Essex County Council, Chelmsford City Council, Anglia-Ruskin University, Essex Partners, the Diocese of Chelmsford. We've got partnerships with NewsQuest, Chelmsford Science and Education Society, whom you're going to hear a lot more of slightly later, and hundreds and hundreds of organisations and individuals across the county working together to curate and create celebrations of science and creativity. 3 aims. 1, to inspire people to understand what we mean by STEAM, or science, technology, engineering, the arts and maths working together, people to feel personally connected to that. We want to encourage a sense of pride and well-being in Essex, people to understand the opportunities on their doorstep, the innovators, the projects, the learning opportunities, and to involve people of all ages in collaboration and participation, thinking about how we might get business working with education, the voluntary community sector working with artists to help bring alive some of the conversations that we're looking at. We've had over 390 events in the programme since January, and there are still more coming on board. Most of those have since March obviously taken place online, but for one moment we thought the whole thing would collapse, but actually we've been able to do some things that we wouldn't otherwise have been able to do, and reach people that we wouldn't otherwise have been able to reach. So it's been a big learning experience, and thank you to everybody who's watching today, who's been a part of that. On the website, now the website is very key, essex2020.com. It's transitioning from an event site into a STEAM resource site. So it is already, but will continue to be chock full of learning resources, profiles of local and national organisations that are championing this work, getting behind the scenes of some of the pioneers, past, present and future. And you'll find already over 30 resources from local and national STEAM organisations, and some of those you're going to hear about shortly. What we do know is that lots of people have heard about Essex 2020 and have really got stuck in. The website has thousands of visitors every day, and the social media team and the communications, which has been delivered with the partnership of Essex County Council and Genesis PR, have been able to get lots of coverage locally and nationally. So we've had some really, really vital conversations and put some of the projects on a platform that otherwise might not have done. And we're looking at things through these 3 themes, which I'm not going to go into a lot of detail now, but you'll see on the site how we've kind of curated some of the topics into Essex Pioneers, Science and Creativity in Action, and Designing the Future. More on that when you look at the website. So that's enough of me. I'm really, really delighted to have 6 very special guests with us this afternoon. And we're going to kick off with an international perspective, for all the way zooming in from Valencia in Spain, to give us a sense of some of the global conversations around design and education. So I'll introduce Lefteris shortly, but we also have Adam from the Chelmsford Science and Engineering Society, Hephzi from Basildon Street Science, Sally from Matipo, based in Harlow, Andy from Southend Tech, and Jamie from Colchester's Signals. So I will go through them in a little bit more detail in a minute, but what I wanted to show is that we've got a spread and we've got a reach across the county, which is really exciting. We've got lots of different parts of the area covered. So first of all, I'm going to bring in Lefteris Heretakis. He is a photographer, an educator, a writer, a teacher, a designer, a global thinker and speaker on education, and how we use design to plan education and in education. And I'm really, really delighted to have him kicking off our little talks this afternoon. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hand over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Richard, for the introduction. That's fantastic. So I'm just going to start the presentation. Okay, hello everyone. My name is Lefteris. I'm a designer and a lecturer. I've been teaching since 2009 in higher education. And when I started teaching, it was actually in Leeds, in Bradford. I was met with a kind of contradiction that there was a very big difference in the way that I was used to education, to what I was seeing then. And that big contrast was getting more apparent year by year. So this prompted a research because then I started a postgraduate certificate in higher education, and so I was able to start researching design education. So since 2009, I started the search, and so in 2015, something more particular happened. I was given the opportunity to research design education internationally. And I went to many countries around Europe, and I looked at art schools. I spoke to students, I spoke to industry, and there were many interesting conclusions came from that. And the primary conclusion is that design education is not the same across the world. There are different challenges and different advantages to each country. But I was very much interested. So I was inspired to start creating things from that, because I wanted to bring a culture of idealism to design education. And so I first created the New Art School, which is a group of people that are working towards the ideal way of creating design education. Then last year in 2009, I started Design Education Talks, which is a podcast that has invites practitioners and educators to talk about the current state of design education. And also last year, it was the first Design Education Forum that was in Alicante. This year we're in Valencia. So yes, the New Art School is a team of individuals that aims to work towards creating a better design education. Design Education Talks is a podcast. You can find it on across the internet. We'll talk about it a bit later about that. Because again, this was born out of the three areas of research that I'm still conducting with the university, the industry, and students. So yes, you can find Design Education Talks podcast across all audio podcasts and on YouTube. So this is from last year, our Design Education Forum from last year and this year, and designed by Etoile Design Consultants, which we thank very much. We're actually still accepting applications for presentations. So again, people can get in touch. If you're interested in practice-based design education, there's still time to submit a video. Thank you so much. Thank you. And just time for questions.
Thank you, Lefteris. We will unpick later, but just before we move on to our next speaker, what is design education? If you could define it pithily, what do you mean by that?
Okay, design education, art and design education, because it's a very good question. Some people are very much focused on design education, and some countries are actually focused on art and design education. And there's a big difference when you start from art to go to design. So the teaching of design, various aspects of design, including art. But what we've forgotten in certain countries is to start from art, because the body of design is art. And if we're teaching design without art, we are forgetting a huge part of the discipline.
Thank you. Yeah, no, looking forward to unpicking that and thinking about the starting point, as you said. Brilliant. Next speaker I'm going to bring in is Adam Wood from the Chelmsford Science and Engineering Society, newly elected president. Congratulations.
Thank you, Richard.
Adam's been a great champion of Essex 2020 and been a really significant part of it, including the legacy planning that we're doing at the moment. Adam is an engineer at Teledyne E2V, day job, running the Science and Engineering Society ably on the side, and has an encyclopedic knowledge of innovation, the history of innovation and design and engineering across Essex past. And I was delighted to see your presentation at the Essex 2020 launch, which was absolutely fascinating. So he's your man if you want to know really just how pioneering this county is. Adam, over to you.
Thank you, Richard. Let me share my screen. Okay, hopefully you could see my slides there. Yeah, thank you for the introduction, Richard. So just a brief note that CSES is a registered charity. We exist to advance the public understanding of science and engineering and technology, to promote STEM careers and also to support STEM education. And it says I'm vice president there because technically I don't become president till the AGM on the 18th of November. We can let that one slide. So what we're here today to discuss, how do we keep science and creativity experiences practical when we have to be apart? So I'm a systems engineer. I like to make sure we understand the problem, sufficiently and in detail. So let's unpack that a little. In the context of education, I think some good principles really to abide by for a good practical activity are that one, it should have a well-defined learning outcome, such as a principle to be explained or explored. It should have a method or an explanation that's easy or easy enough to follow, including actions to take and observations to take. It may require some equipment or some materials, and it absolutely should be fun, or at the very least interesting, so that you achieve what you set out to achieve. So clearly a hands-on activity is never going to be quite the same when conducted remotely, but it should be possible to meet all of these criteria or go some way towards meeting them at least. So what are the challenges that we face then that make it harder or could make it harder to conduct practical activities remotely? So coming back to these 4 points, I think the first one could be lack of structure. If people are conducting self-selected or and self-guided activities at home, which is probably all a good thing, it does make it harder to link the learning outcomes back to the curriculum or whatever other objectives are trying to be achieved. The second problem could be one of demonstrator competence. For the activity to work well and to achieve its aims, the demonstrator or supervisor, who's probably a parent if it's being done at home, or a guardian, needs to be confident in the method and the underlying teaching that's trying to be achieved. Or the remote demonstrator, who's probably a teacher, if it's a remote classroom situation, needs to be capable of demonstrating remotely, which is a discrete skill set from traditional teaching methods and their subject expertise. Thirdly, material availability could be a challenge. If it's conducted at home, not everyone might have access to the right materials or equipment. This is especially true for electronics and robotics projects and the like. And the fourth thing, I think, is the lack of group experience. Things are more fun and are more instructive if they're done as a group or in teams, because participants can observe each other, learn from each other's mistakes, have a good laugh at each other's mistakes, which adds to it, and discuss their findings. So I'm going to now look at these 4 in more detail. That's not an exhaustive list, and I would really invite the audience to come up with their own and challenge me a bit on that about what else might be a problem that we need to overcome. So taking the first one, structure and content, how do we ensure that practical activities are worth it and will achieve the desired goal? So STEM at home has become a major phenomenon in recent months since the lockdown and since the schools were closed earlier this year. Taking advantage of modern technology, which makes it easy to generate and publish content online, many organisations have rapidly built up libraries of online resources containing practical activities to do at home. which range from simple science experiments such as bending light through water and exploring vibrations with elastic bands, through to full-on robotics and coding projects, bridge building, and so on. If you search the internet for STEM at home, you'll find loads. The organisations shown on the screen here all have much to offer and are ones you'll probably recognise. They're also the most reputable sources. There are, of course, others. And a few highlights I'd like to point out for our audience today. So STEM Learning, who you see there, have an excellent set of material, and it's linked to the curriculum and categorised by the age group in question. Also, the IET is the same. They categorise it, and it's searchable and indexed by age range, subject and duration. The IOP has a really nice structured set of experiments featured as episodes in its Do Try This at Home series, and an even larger collection in its Marvin and Milo web comic book. So please do check those out. And a lot of content's being produced locally. So the STEM Hub, who are the local incarnation of our STEM Ambassadors network, STEM Learning, have created loads of videos, including some from my colleagues at Teledyne, E2V. Leonardo down in Basildon have created their own library of STEM at home. Our local IOP branch has been absolutely instrumental in creating much of the IOP's content. And of course, the Essex 2020 resources website, which Richard introduced us to earlier, has much material which is growing day by day. So in summary, there's lots of ideas and content available, much of which is structured around the curriculum or another well-defined set of objectives. And I would recommend that choosing an activity from one of these reputable sources is likely to result in the most successful outcome. Now, delivering practical lessons remotely may seem daunting, either for the parents or guardians who are home educating for the first time or are not confident in their knowledge of the underlying principles at play, or for teachers who now have to deliver lessons remotely and don't have experience doing that. Well, the key message here is that help is available. For families teaching and learning at home, STEM Learning has excellent support material, including the Science of Learning for Parents and Home Learning Survival Guide on their website. And they also have, and I think this is very important, a list of smartphone apps to help teach science and computing, and I think they plan to expand that, targeted at supporting the most vulnerable students and most vulnerable children who may not have access to the resources set by their school. The IOP also has a comprehensive set of teacher training material. It's a comprehensive program. If you search for IOP CPD, that's continuing professional development, you'll find some material aimed at helping teachers boost and maintain their confidence in teaching physics, with all the lessons, training sessions, I should say, currently delivered virtually. And the focus is very much on how to teach remotely or in a socially distanced way, with training delivered by coaches who are experiencing this firsthand. One of them, for example, teaches at Great Baddow High School here in Chelmsford. There is an upcoming CPD session on the 29th to the 31st of October, organised by the London, East Anglia and Kent branch. So if you search for Talk Physics CPD Festival or see the CSES website where I've put some links, I would encourage any teachers listening to check that out if they'd like to boost their professional development in terms of remote delivery of science. And there's also training available specifically for teachers early in their careers. So search for IOP student teachers, or again, check our website for links, and you'll hopefully find something there. And remember, if you choose an activity from a reputable source, from a set library, it's likely to be doable, it's likely to be achievable, and will achieve what you want. Now, any practical activity necessarily requires material or equipment of some sort, but how do we make sure that the most disadvantaged are not left behind? Most of the activities available from the sources outlined previously require only everyday materials that most households are likely to have, or can be supplied at very low cost by the school if required. One example, which I'll come to more later, is the CSES bridge building competition, which ran earlier this year, which saw dozens of students constructing bridges just out of cardboard, used food packaging, and they had to support a tin of beans. Now, it's unavoidable that some projects, such as electronics and robotics and coding, will require specialist hardware, unless it's conducted purely as an on-screen exercise. So there are plenty of low options here, but I'd like to just highlight one local highlight, which I think people should be aware of, and that's Rapid Electronics in Colchester. So they have an entire education division, which supplies educational kits and materials at low cost. This includes electronics components, platforms such as Raspberry Pi, Arduino, but extends to supplies for all subjects, including science, DT, art and design, music, drama, and sports. The list goes on. So do check it out. Search for Rapid Electronics Education, or again, look at our website. They're selling, for example, a microbit, which is a BBC computing platform for children, for £12.59, including VAT. And once you've added basic accessories, you're looking at just under £20, which is, I hope you would agree, is affordable. They also offer a kitting service where they'll put stuff together for you, set up during the pandemic to put together kits for courses delivered remotely, and will deliver it to students if required. Now, again, help is available with the finances. If you're organising a practical activity and are struggling to meet equipment costs, or have disadvantaged students who may need additional support, the CSES STEM Club Bursary may be able to help. So this was set up in 2014 in collaboration with Essex Community Foundation, and it exists to help the creation and growth of STEM clubs and activity. And we would certainly consider funding remote activities given the current climate. There's a simple online application form on our website, or just get in touch with me directly or one of the team to find out more. And most importantly, and finally, how do we ensure that practical activities continue to be fun? Of course, some students will prefer to work alone, and some activities are better conducted alone, but on the whole, one of the main things lost by working remotely is that lack of social aspects of working in teams or groups. And the learning benefits of observing each other, learning from mistakes and discussing findings, as I said earlier, are also at risk. So one way we can replicate this is to run remote activities as competitions. I mentioned the CSES bridge building competition a moment ago. We ran this instead of our Imagine masterclasses, which we would have been running over the summer, and we were inundated with entries. It was fantastic. The challenge was to make a bridge using only cardboard, string, tape, or glue, with a span of 30 centimeters or more, and it had to support a tin of beans or similar. And among the many entries, there were lots of different approaches, some really excellent structures, and some pretty hilarious engineering failures as well. We're sharing all of these, and we've announced the winners on the CSES website. The competition is now closed, but the full activity pack, including the content of the would-be masterclass on mechanics and bridges, is published on our website. It's free to use. Please do so. I'd encourage people to run their own competitions if they like. And we'll be adding more packs and more competitions in the future. So, whilst it's theoretically possible to run group activities remotely or in a socially distanced way in the classroom, my recent conversations with the teachers reveals that this is far from easy. And I would challenge the audience to maybe discuss and come up with some points about what can we really do about this. So to wrap up, content is key, and there are plenty of established online resources. CPD and training opportunities are available if you need them. You don't need to break the bank when it comes to obtaining materials, and help is available. And there are lots of ways to keep practical experiences fun, even when we're apart. So just as a final footnote, if you like, everything I've shown in this talk today is linked on the CSES website. Please take a look to find out more about what we do. And if you're a student, teacher, or academic, CSES membership is free. Sign up online to get the latest updates and opportunities by email. That's all from me. Thank you. Back to you, Richard.
Thank you, Adam. What a comprehensive tour through that thinking and not just the CSES offer, but many others as well. That was brilliant. Thank you very much. I'm now going to bring in Dr. Hephzi Tagoe, the pioneer behind Basildon Street Science and director of ghScientific, and again has been a really crucial pillar of the Essex 2020 story so far, and I know is launching a new project in the coming weeks. So Hephzi, over to you.
Thank you, Richard, and welcome everyone once again. So I'm going to take this from the Science Festival perspective, because I'm with an organization called ghScientific, and we help organize the Basildon Street Science Festival, which couldn't be held this year, and we are actually taking it virtual. So interestingly enough, a few months ago, I was in a lecture looking at the impact of COVID-19 on science engagement, and there was a talk by a lecturer from the University of Central Lancashire on widening the divide. So one of the main things that we do at ghScientific is making STEM accessible, which leads on quite well to a few things that Adam Wood had mentioned. And basically, they had conducted research on how the science curriculum, in terms of the practical side of things, and the teaching of math and science and the other content during lockdown were impacted. And it did actually highlight that in many cases, a lot of the parents were struggling to deliver the practical science side of activities from the resources that were being sent through during the lockdown. And so it wasn't just a case of even parents who were science literate, based on juggling the homeschooling in their own work as well. It was a case of the kids having to read out the activities or watch other videos or find these resources that parents would set for them to be able to carry out the activities that were being made available. And of course, there was a case of resources, how you could source the resources. And yes, whilst a lot of the websites would have resources that are easily resourced from home, when factoring in everything else that was going on at the time, it was a challenge for a lot of households. So what we are doing at the moment, ghScientific, in terms of the Basildon Street Science Festival and our main primary school project, which is Let Us STEAM, and taking that virtual, is that we have actually partnered with the Royal College of Pathology, where they have the ready-made kits, some of the examples that Adam would have mentioned. And so the participants that we have registered on the activities will have these kits mailed out to them at no cost, thanks to the funding that has come through Essex 2020, so that they have everything they need ready to engage in these online activities. And that's one way that we're looking to bring out the creativity. So they're still, although online, but you've got the same resources and you've got that network with a collective group of people within your age category doing the same thing with the help of your facilitator. Where we're having to do activities art related and not just where you need your science activities, our facilitators have sent in a simple instructions on what you would need. And one of the projects where you'd have to cut out cardboard to build rockets, for example, again, we're mailing out all the templates to registered participants who may not have access to printers at home or the quality cardboard paper that the template would need to be printed on. And that's how we're looking to increase accessibility in terms of promoting the creativity of the sciences during this period. So fast forward to the Basildon Street Science, we're actually taking that virtual, and what we're doing, it will be interactive, and we've just got various videos and career talks. And rather than having the usual practical stands that our visitors will come around and engage with, it's all going to be online, and it's a super exciting interactive online content where the cartoons will still talk to you, and you can still click on various stands and you can ask your questions and you have your answers. And we're hoping, it's been piloted for the first time, but we do hope that it will be interactive enough and still be able to link back to the curriculum and be accessible to everyone at home, provided they can get some form of internet connection and get connection to engage in the activities. But of course, instructions for the kids that are going out, they will come with instructions. So if it's a case where there are families who cannot join in due to connectivity issues, they've still got the kits mailed out to them, they've still got the instructions. These are not things that need to be returned, and it's available for the kids to engage with that way. So hopefully the world of science festivals is still alive, and it can help keep the creativity alive through the science engagement and the arts. And that's where we're at.
Alive and kicking, Hephzi, fantastic. Thank you. I think you've achieved some extraordinary things, and I think that's the sort of message that we really want people to be discussing today. Really, is, you know, we're down, but we're definitely not out. And actually, it's the creative thinking that has been able to show a bit of innovation and some new ways of doing this. So brilliant, thank you very much. And on which note, I'm going to bring in now Sally Hardcastle from Matipo. Matipo Arts is a drama company based in Harlow that Sally runs with her sister, and they've been producing some fantastic resources for children to use at home. But I'll hand over to you.
Hello, bear with me while I just get my slides up and happening. Can everyone see those? Wonderful. Okay, lovely. Hello, I'm Sally. I'm co-director of Matipo, and as Richard said, the other co-director is Georgia, my sister. Her background is in writing and directing, and mine is in design and making, so we complement each other a little bit. Matipo is, sorry, I'm on two devices, bear with me. Matipo is an arts company. We make theatre and public art, and we facilitate and run workshops with young people and not so young people. And we try to bring collaboration into all areas of our work. We believe that by putting value on imagination, society creates the people who will give back to it the most. And that informs pretty much everything we do. We've really come to realise over the past year or so how important STEAM is to us and to our practice. As I say, collaboration and bringing people together and ideas and skills together is really central to our work. So the way that STEAM brings together obviously these different topics of science, technology, engineering, art and maths is so valuable. I think too often these things are seen quite separately, and particularly art is seen as something quite different and perhaps less valuable than the others. Obviously art is a very big subject, and really at the heart of it is creativity, and creativity is crucial in science, in technology, in engineering and even in maths. And of course it goes the other way as well. Excuse me. My background is in theatre design and set and costume design, and I can remember being quite put out like week 2 of my degree when I realised I would have to use trigonometry to solve a design problem. I thought I'd left that behind forever at GCSE, but then it was actually quite a joy to relearn a bit of trigonometry and to use it for a real purpose and doing something I love. So yeah, so I'm going to talk very briefly about our latest project, STEAM On, which is part of Essex 2020. And it was a summer programme providing daily themed arts activities centred around STEM subjects. And they were based mostly on the Key Stage 2 curriculum, a few bits of Key Stage 1 curriculum. So every weekday during the summer holidays, we uploaded 3 activities to our website, either as worksheets or as pre-recorded videos. And they were a mixture of drama, writing, art and design activities, a whole range of stuff. The aim was to provide something fun for kids to do over the summer, but also to support families in the education of their children after obviously such a long time spent out of school during lockdown. There are about 80 activities now, and they're all on our website and free to access, so do have a look at them. As I say, they're focused mainly on the Key Stage 2 curriculum, but there's a lot there that's appropriate for other age groups as well. And you can get to that definitely by Googling us, but I think you may also be able to reach it via the Essex 2020 website. Richard may correct me on that later, but I think we can get there that way as well. So I'd like to tell you very quickly as well about another project. This one we did 2 years ago, so this is Fleeced. It's a theatre production. Fleeced was initially developed with the Redbridge Youth Theatre Workshop. So Georgia wrote the script, and then it was workshopped and built in collaboration with about 30 young people aged 14 to 21. And this photo is actually from the second iteration of Fleeced. After the youth theatre production, we then developed it for professional performance with a cast of 6 adult actors, and we took that to a couple of venues in London. Fleeced is written in 3 separate acts, very distinct acts, and the first follows 2 young people as they find their way through a dystopian, futuristic, totalitarian world. Act 2 is set in a computer game and follows the avatars of 4 players as they try to win the final level together. And that's very funny, but also explores the anonymity that we have online and how people we meet online are not always quite what they seem to be. And the final act is a collection of short anarchic skits exploring various different themes. What was really great about Fleeced as a project was that all those young people at Redbridge Youth Theatre were able to explore those themes like technology and the place it has in our lives and other things through drama, through voice and movement and games, and then through the conversations that those activities provoked. So it was really valuable in that way, and it was really good fun. So we're developing another theatre project at the moment, and it's under the working title Asher and the Troll. It's a modern folk tale for 7 to 11-year-olds, and it's based on a traditional Norwegian folk story. We've adapted it to centre around themes of empathy, agency and friendship. We're looking to develop it over the next year or so. Fingers crossed, opening next summer, COVID allowing, but possibly in a slightly different iteration and possibly a little later, who knows. And the aim is for the whole show to magically unfold from a travelling storytelling wagon. So it can be performed in school halls and parks and playing fields and even community venues as well. We're looking to develop this show in partnership with one or more Essex primary schools or other educational settings. So we want to offer some free workshops in drama, in writing, in puppetry and puppet making specifically, and also in design. And we would also like to develop some literacy packs to support the show and to share with other schools as well. So exactly what form this partnership will take is still quite flexible, and we're keen to find out what schools actually want. So we would love to hear from educators in Essex and start some conversations around that. What have we got next here? Building Utopia. Yeah, so when we're not making theatre, we also produce and facilitate public art. So just going to touch super quickly on this one. Building Utopia was a community art installation we ran at Eastgate Gallery in Harlow just before lockdown. We invited people of all ages to come together and learn a little bit about utopia, about the idea of utopia, a perfect place, and how different people have tried to create it over the years. So we asked people of all ages to come together and to make their own additions to our future city, which you can just kind of see at the back on the left-ish. You can see a bit of it there. There was more. Yeah, and to add some of their thoughts and their ideas as well of what might make Harlow a better place to live through our wall of change. So we were bringing together different people, different perspectives and ideas, and sparking some really great conversations, actually. There was some very good chat. We had a really wide age range. I think our youngest was 6 or 7 that came along, and I didn't ask the age of the eldest person that came along, but it was a very big age range, so that was really nice. The practical act of making things was a brilliant way to work through ideas and to communicate ideas as well, I suppose. And we tend to find that when everyone's focused on gluing something or whatever, it takes the pressure off a little bit, and there's more space and more freedom to chat, which is really, really valuable. The activities that made up Building Utopia are all things that can be done individually, that don't need an art room or loads of special materials, and that culminate in something really collaborative and alive and tangible and satisfying. So I think there's real potential to get these kinds of things happening in classrooms, even at the moment. As well as community-based art, we also visit schools and run a range of workshops and talks and other things for young people of all ages. There's a full list of what we currently offer on our website, but to give you an idea of the range, we run character workshops where we explore characters, usually from a story. So we'll do some drama games, we might do some writing activities, we'll do some costume design and explore how our understanding of a character can be communicated visually. And for younger groups, characters might be from a storybook, and we might be learning about feelings, empathy, or about people from a particular time in history. For older groups, and this can be great even for GCSE students, for example, the character might be from a set text, or they might be political figures from the past. So we can tailor a workshop very much to your class and to your learning outcomes. It can be a really interesting way of bringing different curriculum areas together, and it's an interesting and a valuable way of working, and it brings students with different interests in, but it's also really efficient because it covers a bunch of subjects all at once, which is very nice. So we also do puppet making sessions and career talks for older students. We're always keen to understand what it is that schools and educators are really after and what will be most beneficial for young people. So we're always happy to build a bespoke workshop or adapt an existing one, or just have a chat, to be honest. You can always drop us an email. So we also do a really fun thing called Adventure Island, which is a sort of semi-immersive imagined expedition to a faraway island within your classroom or school environment. And young people use creative skills to solve problems and to imagine and document their adventure. And this can be a really fun activity for 6-year-olds, for example, but it can also be super valuable for 16-year-olds. And it can be pitched at all different levels, and it includes STEM subjects. So particularly in the practical problem solving side of it, there's quite a lot of STEM. So that's really, really fun. And again, tailorable. We can deliver that as a 1-hour workshop or an all-day thing. Our sessions try, wherever possible, to cover more than one subject. As I said earlier, creative arts and STEM subjects go hand in hand. Neither can really progress without the other. And so it's important, I think, that we recognise that in the education of our young people. Obviously, writing and making and design and drama all have intrinsic value of their own, definitely, but they're also incredibly useful tools for learning and for communicating what we have learnt. I think in the same way as a high level of literacy enables us to go out and function in the world and learn and communicate and share, so does a strong foundation in creative skills and understanding. And that foundation can also inform our ability to problem solve and to innovate as well. Where are we at here? So it's super important that we get creative subjects, practical creative subjects, into the classroom. That said, right now it's obviously very tricky to fit them in around core subject catch-up, and it might also be hard working in a standard classroom setup without access to the art room, for example. In a drama context, obviously that would usually be something that involves a lot of moving around and maybe not very much personal space, so that's something else to deal with. That said, the picture on this slide is from a rehearsal of Fleeced, our production from a couple of years ago. And as you can see, we were ahead of the curve on social distancing. So these performers are all rehearsing a scene together, but in this case, I think they are all avatars stuck on their starting podia within a computer game. So it's definitely possible for narrative conceits to keep everyone safe and distanced without losing the group dynamic. There's lots of other things you could try that maintain a bit of distance. For example, instead of throwing a ball around the room, you might be concerned about a lot of hands touching the same ball. You can try throwing imaginary slime in your warm-ups. That's always fun. And it really requires the total focus of the whole group, because you do not want to lose imaginary slime. So it's really grounding, actually, because everyone is so focused in on it. And also movement exercises or games that require everyone to stay apart and be aware of other people in the space. So we kept coming back to character walking in the Fleeced, not workshops, rehearsals, in the Fleeced rehearsals. So performers walk around space on an imagined grid line, and they have to avoid getting too near to each other while exploring and portraying different aspects of their characters through their physicality. Soundscapes are also really great things to make, and you can do that with everyone just sitting in their chairs and facing forwards if need be. And they can be really atmospheric and a really good way to explore a setting or a feeling or an atmosphere. So we're very nearly at the end. What else is there? Well, there's loads is the answer. So obviously we have a bunch of resources and workshops, and our resources are free and our workshops are usually not free but fairly affordable. And what is also available is a whole load of stuff from local organisations. So we've heard about some of that already, and I'm sure we will hear about more today. It's really worth, at the moment, getting in touch with your local thing, where that might be your local museum or an arts organisation. It could be something tiny, could even be your local library. There are loads and loads of places that are doing some great stuff at the moment. Now is also a perfect time to get in touch with not so local organisations, because we're using so much Zoom. If, for example, I don't know, you've seen something in Cheshire that looks amazing and you thought, oh, well, we can't do that, we'll have to find something similar. Right now, you can probably contact the person in Cheshire. It's a great time for that. So look a little bit further afield as well. What also could be a good idea is to look for your local cultural education partnership. So not all areas have those yet. They're quite a new idea, an idea from the Arts Council. And the idea is they are a group that brings together educators and cultural organisations within a district. So I know Colchester has one. Signals is part of it. Jamie's going to talk to us later. So definitely Colchester does, and several other places in Essex, but not everywhere has one yet. But yeah, they're brilliant. They're really good for signposting. They can put you in touch with the right people, and sometimes they even have some funding attached to them, which is extra good. And what else is on here? So artists and creatives, now is also a really good time to engage with individual creatives. Lots of creative practitioners and freelancers have had most of their work disappear, so they've got some free time. And now is a really good time, even just to ring up and have a chat with a creative practitioner, or to organise something more like a visit or a workshop or a collaboration on something. And to find those people, a good way is going via a local cultural organisation. So I've got a bunch of pictures on here of different people's logos, but I know, for example, in Harlow, Pond and Mill, and I haven't got their logo, but also Gatehouse Arts, both have a bunch of artists and creatives working there. They're both artist studios, and they know some other people as well. Metal in Southend, I think, is pretty good for that kind of stuff. And East 15 Acting School, on a slightly separate note, I know that they're based in Dibden, in Epping, and in Southend, I believe. And they have an applied theatre course, and I know that as part of that, some of the students have to practice running workshops and things like that. And I've worked with some graduates from E15 who have done that course, and they're amazing. So it's an interesting partnership to think about as well, and it might be worth dropping an email to E15 on that kind of thing, from more of a drama-y perspective. And then finally, Essex Music Services. So when I'm not with Matipo, I work for Essex Music Services, and we've got loads of great stuff happening at the moment. Some of it's really well funded as well. So it's really worth just going on the Essex Music Services website, the Essex Music Education Hub website, and getting in touch, because we've got, for example, at the moment, we've got a lot of funding for LAC and PLAC students, and that's from tiny right up to sixth form, I believe. And that's for individual music lessons. It's also for group stuff, things like rap workshops, I think some music tech stuff as well, which is really cool. Yes, there's a bunch of things that are funded and that are either free or heavily subsidised. And yeah, just a whole interesting range of stuff, to be honest, so well worth looking at. There is loads out there, so have a Google is my advice. And that's me pretty much done, I think. Please get in touch with us. Our website is matipoarts.com, and our handle on all things social media is at matipoprod, prod as in production, and matipopod@gmail.com is our email address as well. So get in touch with us and have a chat. We can maybe point you in the direction of some good things.
Thank you, Sally. That's extraordinary amount of information and great examples there. And yes, the Essex 2020 website does have all of your resources on there, certainly a signpost to them.
Amazing.
And many of the other organisations that you mentioned as well, which we will unpick. We can talk a bit about the cultural education partnerships in a bit more detail in the discussion that we'll have shortly. And Sarah from Royal Opera House Bridge has piped up in the chat there. They are really instrumental to a lot of this and will be in the next phase of Essex 2020 as well. So thank you for raising that. So brilliant. I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to move on to Andy from Southend Tech. Andy is again has been absolutely the backbone, one of the backbones of Essex 2020 from the very beginning, running some extraordinary workshops with getting young women into tech, which he's going to talk about in a minute, as well as Raspberry Pi jams, lots of collaborative work, always open and flexible and creative in ways of engaging with lots of different groups. So it's been great working with him. But also what's been exciting is just how much of it you've taken online and actually expanded your reach, I think, which you're going to tell us about. So Andy, over to you.
Thank you, Richard. I'll see if I can screen share. Okay, so yeah, online STEAM activities with the Essex STEAMettes. They're the girls who love being creative with science and engineering. So as Richard said, we've been doing lots and lots of activities prior to lockdown and after lockdown. So he didn't want me to go on for 2 hours. So we're just talking about the Essex STEAMettes. I run Raspberry Jam, and Raspberry Jam is a large STEAM festival. We'd have 150 people typically. Here you can see half of them at the beginning of a 5-hour session. We'd run, people bring projects, they'd show their STEAM projects, they'll use Raspberry Pi computers, and they'll use microbits and Arduinos and anything which is cool. We're not very fussy about what we have, as long as it's interesting to people, and it covers a wide range. So we have some young people, we have some old people, we have some experts, and we have beginners. So we have talks as well, and we have people running workshops, learning workshops. We've been going about 6 years, and because we're starting to do more and more things with other people like Basildon Street Science, we decided the girls have been really good at helping run workshops and doing talks. So we actually started off doing some girls only events. So this is Basildon Library, and here's some of the older girls who are going to be helping, and they actually helped out with the under 11s. So Chelmsford Library, we had 120 people just before COVID hit, and if you look on the left, you can see some of the older girls, and they're holding up their robots. And after about 4 or 5 hours of helping with workshops and doing talks, this is basically them flaked out at the end. They were doing electronics, showing robots and helping people with the workshops. And some of them did talks. So that's actually a talk about virtual reality. So lockdown happened, and then we moved to online meetups. So similar to Zoom, we used the free jitsi.org service. So on the right, you can see people in a group, in a couple of group photos. And we do things like screen share, where we can actually have projects and code, and people would screen share, and we can look at it, and maybe we could look at what was going wrong, what was going right. And at the top, you can see there's some digital art doing turtle graphics, which some of you may remember if you're of a certain age. So people did projects, and we can hold projects up to the screen. On this one, it's actually a reptile environmental monitoring system. There's a fan at the right, and there's a heater at the top, and there's a microbit with a temperature sensor controlling the fan and the heater using some relays there. So that was quite an interesting project, and it was quite relevant. So the girl was doing animal science, so it's relevant to what she was doing. And obviously, it's not as good as if you were physically there and you got to talk to her and you could maybe prod some of the things, but it does work. Some of the girls were into doing the Scratch programming, and as part of the manifesto for Essex with Essex Book Festival, they did flooding and environmental change, climate change, and they made little interactive stories. This one's based on the Epic of Gilgamesh, where there's a flood, the characters go into the flood, and then it swims away and everyone else drowns. So it's a little bit like Noah's Ark. And here's an interesting one based on climate change as well, based on a butterfly which flies around and saves the environment. And there's some more of their projects which they've done. And they created earth poems, and actually went on Chelmsford community radio, and their earth poems were spoken, and they also appeared in Chelmsford High Street where they were printed up. So the one at the bottom right is quite an interesting one, Save the Earth. So they brought in some fun things. That one's actually blowing up the earth, and Darth Vader takes part in that one. So lots of fun. We also did a few projects in our homes, and then they were recorded. And here's a couple of builder bridges, which were actually part of the Chelmsford Science and Engineering Society. So the girls made loads of videos. They've done over 40 videos of all their little projects, and that really worked quite well. So here's a couple of videos on the left. So with the microbit, they created a musical glove. So they added the speaker so you could hear it, and you could use gestures. So as you moved your hand left and right, up and down, you could code it up to do different things. So the girl on the top's playing a musical duet with her guitar and her microbit, and the two girls on the bottom, the one with the orange glove, has coded it up, and she's shown her friend how it works, and they're actually doing a TikTok video, which apparently is quite cool if you're a young person. Lowena's here on the right, and she's actually doing a talk about the Essex DMETs. So we got the girls taking part, running things, doing talks, building up their confidence. And she's actually in Echoes for Essex. And at the end of her talk, she pops up her hand, it's got the glove, and she does the Echoes from Essex tune by doing 2 different gestures. We have the 11 to 19-year-olds. We started off with the older girls, but these 2 girls are 9 and 10, and they were doing really well. This is actually an online event with Preston. So the Raspberry Jams are all over the UK and international. And they went up to Preston Jam, they saw a few things, and then they worked on their own projects with us, and they've gone back and they're presenting to about 50 quite technical people, showing their version of Roblox, which they've created in Scratch. So that was pretty cool. So that's what we've been doing since lockdown. And in a couple of weeks, in the half-term holidays, we're doing a Raspberry Jam STEAM festival where we'll cover a lot of the things which we've been doing, but a lot of the Essex STEAmettes are going to be helping run the workshops, and some will be based on things which they're doing as well. So this is actually virtual reality. The Essex 2020 has been designed in the 3D design program. You could 3D print it. Obviously now we're online, it's a little bit harder to do things like that, but they've been put into virtual reality here. And there's a couple of cartoon characters, as you can see, they're saying a year of science and creativity, support the Essex STEAmettes, and we've got the Raspberry Jam as a background put onto a wall. So if people have been doing Scratch, it's quite similar coding to that, and you can create your own little stories. Another thing which we're doing, Tim Peake he took up 2 Raspberry Pi computers to the International Space Station, and one of them is looking out onto Earth. So that's looking down, and it's got a camera in the back. And what it will do is it will allow you to do some advanced space science and look at environmental change in terms of plant health and also things like snow on a mountain. And we've got some really easy activities where people from, say, the age of 6 to up to 14 can create messages and animations and send it out to astronauts on that screen. There's an LED screen at the top left, 8x8 grid. So you'll see that on the Essex 2020 website. That's the Raspberry Jam STEAM Festival. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Really extraordinary as ever. I'd love to have your job and half of your knowledge, but very succinct. Thank you. We'll come back to all of this shortly. So the last of our sort of presenters giving a flavour of what's going on is Jamie from Signals. Signals is a digital arts and media and creativity learning centre in Colchester, who I think have done unimaginable things over the last few months, taking workshops online and reaching literally tens of thousands of people, and it's been a great joy to work with them. And the Time to Talk Time project that's been happening in tendering in the last few weeks has also been very exciting. So Jamie, you're going to tell us all about that, I think. Over to you.
Hello, hi. Yes, so well, I'm not going to quite talk about talk time today. That's something that my colleague is leading on. But yes, talk time is a really, in fact, I can actually show you a little bit of it. Talk time is a really exciting project that we've been doing. We're looking at communication to the ages, and we've been developing some really great sort of video content that we've been working with local animators and young people to develop stories and try and create a bit of that. Let me just see if on our website there is the current video. I can just actually grab that up for you now. And what I'm also going to be showing today is some of the cool things that we've been doing over lockdown, some of the awesome live streams and workshops and how we've been managing them online and how we've actually been doing that. So I'll finish off, because it's a bit of a film, I'll finish off with the film last, but first of all I'll go into some of the live stream stuff that will lead into lead into the talk time video. Okay, so share screen. I want to share presentation here. Sweet. Okay, so two of the main forms of engagement that we've been looking at is the free online live streams that have been really, really important as we've moved all of our workshops online, and we've done some sort of paid Zoom workshops, which has sort of replaced our regular workshops. Now, the live streams itself, what we've done is using OBS, which is obviously free software for those who don't use OBS, using the webcam here. So we've got the Logitech C290. Before lockdown, it was like 70 quid. Now it's about 130 because everyone's using webcams. And we stream that directly to Facebook Live, as you can see there, phrase down there in the bottom right corner, doing our free online sort of make a computer game. And we just do that by taking the stream key from Facebook Live, throwing it into OBS, start the streaming, and then we have different inputs there in the sources that allow us to do it online. Now, the reason why we do this is it allows us to have direct communication with young people, people who don't always want to come to a workshop, and also because they're pre-recorded, they'll exist after, so people can engage afterwards. The other cool thing is it's a little bit like, I guess, like a live version of Ask Tag or something, right? So we will schedule it ahead of time, put an event, tell what people will need to bring along with them if they want to do it like live along. We create a script, so we can read off of one there while I'm sort of presenting, for instance. And then we also have a technical person behind the scenes normally that will either be Fraser or myself, depending on what we're sort of presenting and who's leading. Will there be able to answer questions in the chat and also be able to like control certain elements on OBS, because I don't know what you guys are using, but it may be OBS for this, where you can like change where things are being seen on live stream. The great thing is that people are able to offer suggestions. We can interact with people directly, and obviously we can record simultaneously, like this is being recorded here. We could chop that into a smaller thing and then use that as a learning resource going forward. So it's kind of like it has two uses then. And then obviously, I don't want to talk too much about that because that's a bit self-explanatory. But what we have been doing a lot is these sort of online workshops. Oh yeah, we've been doing these online workshops. So we break this down into basically like a 2-hour segment, as we find that 2 hours is about the length that people can normally stand to do like an online workshop. And for that, we do our 15-minute introduction. We do maybe, and we're using also animation as well as the one for this. 15-minute create a story. Do a 10-minute sort of for them to design the storyboard, give them a 10-minute comfort break, and then we give them 40 minutes for them going off and actually creating. And that's really important. That's a chance for them to go off on their own or work with someone in their household and actually go off and create something after spending some time learning the stuff with us in the Zoom call. And then we all come back together, spend about 15 minutes doing some post-production related stuff. And then the last 15 minutes is all about group sharing and work using the share screen function. Also, then I tried to get them to send the files over Google Drive, and then I can download them, put them into some sort of complication video or something like that to show what we've been up to. Now, everything that we've done so far, we have actually then put it onto our online website. So there at signals.org.uk. If you just go into education and free online animation and video game making guides, all of these and more. So this is just the animation one that I'm going to show you, for instance, but there's lots. We've got animation, filmmaking, game making, game of the day, that sort of kind of thing, and they all exist there. So you guys can go on and use that, then use that in your learning, whatever, you know, use these as learning resources, or young people can follow them in the same way. So when we go through our introduction, what we normally do is we'll give the young people some idea of what things they should bring with them, and we try and keep all of the things that they use, things that you can find around the house. So for animation, of course, you are going to need some sort of camera. However, you can use a smartphone. So we use Cloud Stop Motion as our sort of animation software. It's online, it's free, it's very, very easy to use. You can get like an education license for it as well, where it's like there's a free version, and then if you want to have like a longer video, you can pay something. However, as an education, you can get an education license, and then you can sort of manage multiple accounts, and then you can also see what they've been creating and download it. So, you know, one of the tricky things is getting stuff off of the young people, and we can do that from our end. And also we can like log into their accounts and then give them some tips if they're getting a bit stuck. So we suggest for them to use Cloud Stop Motion. We'll then ask them to get a camera or something like that, but using Cloud Stop Motion, it works on desktops and on your mobile phones, so they can just use their phones or their parents' phones or a tablet device. A constant light source. Now, if they don't have a window, then we can just like some sort of window, like a house lamp or something, or just turning the light on itself always works quite well for that. And then we say, what you're going to animate with? Well, the easiest way for us and for them is often just drawing a picture, cutting it out, and do some top-down stop motion animation. And this kind of means that anyone can get involved at any level. I'm not going to expect young people to suddenly have, you know, expert, expensive modeling clay at home, but you know, they might have some Lego lying around. They might have some, you know, some scissors, some marker pens. They could draw something. They may have some little figurines or little puppets or something lying around the house. So the idea is that give them a lot of ways to complete the task. So this is very inclusive, and not being too hung up on if you said, I want this to be Lego, and they've said, well, I ain't got Lego, I'm going to do it on paper. So it's been very, very flexible. When we talk about the software, as I said, we use Cloud Stop Motion, and I've already sort of gone into that, and you can see that there as well. So this is a great resource to find online. And as you can see, there's a student login and a regular login, but you don't have to even log in if you want to sort of look after your privacy. You can just press go and start animating them straight away. And of course, if you do log in, then you're able to save your work. It's a little bit easier to download afterwards. Creating stories and storyboarding. Now, creating stories online with a group of young people can be quite hard, because normally you're in a learning environment where they're around with you and you can sort of directly talk to them or give them ideas, or maybe give them some physical stimulus like I don't know, like a piece of paper or a pen with a drawing on, and that might help them come up with a story idea. But what we offer is sort of giving them a line of dialogue, maybe a prop, maybe a theme for their film that we're going to sort of give them up front and say, everyone, today we're going to be making an animation, or we're going to make a short film, we're going to make a computer game, and your theme is anti-bullying, and your prop is going to be a rubber, and your line of dialogue is going to be, put that boy down, Clive. Or something, I don't know. So the idea is that you give them something, and then they can go into breakout rooms with small groups and start coming up with some idea. Next, we like to storyboard the idea. So what we've done is on our website, so I've just screen grabbed this, we've got a link to a storyboard that they're then able to download and then print out and draw onto it. And you can see the little picture on the right. Of course, if they don't do that, they can just look at the picture of the storyboard and then just draw the squares out on a piece of paper and fill it in themselves. They can use their camera to show us what they've made and share it with their friends, or they can take a picture and upload it into Zoom or whatever it's we're using. Once they've done that, then they can go and actually start animating, which is when we leave them that sort of time to go and create by themselves and then come back to us. When we say creating props and sets, like a really obvious one, if they're just at home, is we say get a cardboard box, you know, or a shoe box or something. Put, you know, turn your shoe box into almost like the side of a doll set. Make a hole in the top. Get a little desk lamp, so you've got the light coming through. Yeah, and then you sort of use something like that to create a background. Or if it's top down, they can just draw their backgrounds on there, and we can have it sort of regular stop motion cut out from the top. So it's a really nice sort of easy, light way for them to sort of be creating sets and sort of then learning as well, like where the camera should go within that set. As I said before, we set them off and give them time to shoot. This is where the Cloud Stop Motion really comes into its own. It's really easy to use, and because everyone's using it, it does have the same interface using phones or desktops. So whatever anyone's having any troubleshooting with, they can simply ask us, and we'll definitely be able to actually share screens with them, and they'll be able to find it quite easily. Also, on our guides here, we've also screen grabbed how you can use them online. And then they come back, and then we can either go with post-production stuff with them, or we can show them websites like freesound.org where they can find some sound effects, or we can show them where to find some music and like help them do the edits. Now with editing, they can either do it for stuff like this, they can either do it in the app. We also, if we're doing filmmaking, we might suggest for them to use a software like DaVinci Resolve, which is sort of free and fairly easy to use. But then because it's free, we can download it, share screens, or even let them take over the controls and then edit from here. And then after that, but then we sort of take the last 15 minutes and share it out. Loads of other resources are available on our website, as I said. So we've got game making 7+, stop motion animation, game in the day, film in the day, historical video game remixing, and arcade maze games. And there's a load of other things that we're doing. So all of these are already on the websites with full guides, videos, and there's also like an edited video of the live stream that we do. So if they want to, they can actually do it along with us, or you guys can do it along with us, and then use that to then teach your young people, whoever you're working with. I'm going to show you now quickly. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen for a second. If I can remember to do that. There we go. I'll stop sharing the screen for a second, and now I'm going to show you a quick video of what we did for the previous talk time project. So the first one is we're talking about semaphore, and this is something that I finished making maybe 2 weeks ago. And that is there, share compute sound, optimize for video clips, share. Okay, enjoy.
Sending long-distance messages has changed dramatically over time. The earliest systems were called optical telegraphs, and these ranged from smoke signals used by ancient cultures to the hydraulic telegraph in 4th century BC Greece. In 1792, Frenchman Claude Chappe was experimenting with long-distance communication and designed a particularly successful semaphore system. His towers had movable arms on the top, and depending on what position they were in, it would communicate different letters or words. These towers could be seen up to 20 miles away in clear conditions, meaning a chain of towers could send a symbol from Paris to Lille in just 2 minutes. That's 140 miles away. In the early 1800s, Britain was at war with France, and in 1803, the British Navy adopted its first signalling system, designed by Naval Commander Sir Home Riggs Popham in his book Telegraphic Signals or Marine Vocabulary. Popham's semaphore consisted of a mast with 3 movable arms, which, when moved to various patterns by ropes, represented different phrases, letters, or numbers. But this wasn't the only communication method in use at the time. Since the eastern coastline was so important in spotting the threat of invasion, it was a hotbed of innovation for how information could be sent quicker and further. In 1808, 2 generals from the Eastern District of the War Office recommended a chain of signalling towers from Walton to London, via St Osyth, Danbury, Billericay and Kent, to warn of impending invasion. Their report outlines 3 possible methods of signalling: smoke balls, pitch barrels, or hoisted flags. Around the same time, a series of Martello towers were built along the eastern coastline, including Tendring, to defend the country from Napoleon and the ongoing war. The Martello Tower at Jaywick was built in 1809 and likely served to relay messages to the barracks at Wheelie should any French troops land on the Essex beaches. In 1810, the Admiralty began to trial a signalling system between these Martello towers and via a leaky old Danish gunboat on Mersey Island, which they renamed HMS Warning. Unfortunately, this boat rocked wildly in the wind, and in his captain's log, Lieutenant Thomas Gill said, "The vessel rolls exceedingly heavy," which didn't make their job of peering into the distance looking for signals very easy. Want to try semaphore yourself? Now you can with our new interactive website. All you need is a laptop or tablet with a camera and an internet connection, and you too can save the ships from the rocks by using semaphore signals. Simply click the link below and try it for yourself.
Okie dokie. So yeah, there's the little video. And we actually animated that. Was one of our BFI alumni. from last year. So that's really nice, giving sort of young people work in a time when there's not much work, especially young artists. Yeah, so there's loads more stuff. If you want to check out more of our stuff or ask us any other particular questions or any more other stuff about our guides or talk time stuff or what else is going on and how you guys can get involved, drop me an email or just go onto the Signals website, go to contact and just email someone. Someone will answer it.
Amy, that's fantastic. I was so engrossed, I forgot that we were part of a webinar, and I thought I was just watching that on YouTube. And then it stopped, and it all came back. I want to watch more of that. That was great. So there we are. I hope you'll all agree. A real buffet of exciting examples of collaborative, low-cost, innovative, easy access, creative ways to make science and creativity, technology alive. And all of that is happening locally. But as Sally said, sometimes that's irrelevant at the moment. You can draw in resource and expertise from all over the shop. So I now want to bring in you guys who are zooming in to ask anything you'd like of our panel. I think I'm certainly got lots of burning questions. I'm sure you have as well. So it can be about the tools, it can be about the process, it can be about collaboration. There's been some great offers of connections already in the chat bar. That's great. So whilst you're formulating your questions and you put them in the Q&A bar, I would like to go back to all of you really and ask for a very succinct reflection on kind of where do you start. So Lefteris at the beginning said design thinking can either come from the sort of the tech side or the art side. All of you have shown really brilliant examples of kind of well thought through materials or projects or activities or lessons. For those listening in thinking, well, that's fantastic, but I've got a blank piece of paper here, or some targets to reach over there in terms of learning. I just don't know where to start. What tip would you give? I'm gonna go to Lefteris first, as that's where.
Yeah, I think people need to do what they find themselves doing in their free time, and not be afraid to follow the passion and the crazy idea, because through repetition, that grows. Because they've tried already, doing what they think should be done. But what seems to be working now is people need to follow the craziest idea, but it's got to come from really deep. And whatever they find doing in their free time, that's what you're doing.
Start with the joy. Start with the interest. What you've got your design education forum coming up, your international one next month. What are the emerging themes from conversation sort of around Europe?
Well, yeah, it's absolutely it's a challenge between this analog and digital way of educating, and also the diversity that we're having in terms of approaches across higher education. That some universities are choosing to go 100% physical, which is how arts and crafts have always been done, to 100% digital, and everything in between, the blended models, and all the challenges people are having in getting art and design education across online.
I've certainly been talking to some drama professors recently, because I'm fascinated at how do you study a drama degree via a platform like this. But actually, he said it's so much about trust, and actually it's about having a really open conversation at the start about what you can and can't do, what the limits are, but also about things that you can do now that you couldn't do before, incorporating video and animation and different forms of, and there's been some extraordinary kind of performing arts that have used Zoom as a platform in new ways. So there's some exciting things coming through. Thank you. Adam, where would you start? Where would you suggest people start? You gave some great tips about things to consider overall, but where would you start?
Yeah, I mean, I would echo what Lefteris said about, do what's fun. As there's an abundance of content available, there's lots of things to choose from, so worry about that later. Start with what you're trying to achieve in terms of the learning objective, and then how, what's going to be fun, what's going to be a fun way of doing that, and have a look around, look for some ideas. You might have your own, or you might sort of get some inspiration from elsewhere. But yeah, what what's going to be enjoyable. Something that came out of we had our centenary celebration last night, as some people listening may know, and one thing that really came out of that was that things that sit on the boundary are really good. So science and creativity, the Essex 2020 message. So things that bring in lots of different disciplines, that bring in lots of different subjects is good. So I would say talk to other people who don't, you're not teaching your subject or whatever it is you're doing, people who have a slightly different background, slightly different aspect on things. They will come up with some ideas you probably never thought of and will be really good, and go with those, I would say.
Thank you. Hephzi, same question to you. A million possibilities, loads of them are going to be really hard. Where do you start?
Just to add on to everything else that's already been said, I would probably just say send an email. What's already fun for you, lots of resources out there that you can use. I'd say just drop an email to whatever your area of interest may be, whatever you're trying to do. Find a web contact somewhere, and usually everyone's virtual now, right? We'll be available. I'll be available. Send me an email.
Be careful what you wish for. Sally, you talked about these extraordinary number of resources that you created over the summer, and they're all great. And I think the thread that's across all of these projects, the ones that we've highlighted here today, we've obviously picked them very carefully, is the quality. I think there's a real quality of execution and of thought and using real experience behind it. And I think some people will worry that everything's a bit improvised and DIY and therefore not very good, but I think we've seen examples that that's not always the case. You've created some really quality resources. Where did you start when you were thinking about what to do, what the Key Stage 2 audience needs, and how to present them?
Well, thank you very much. They were very DIY, so I'm glad that they're also of a high quality. Thank you. Yeah, I think basically we started with a list and then a conversation. So and I was very lucky to be working with Georgia, and that thing of having a person to bounce ideas off with a slightly different background. So obviously she's much more in drama and has a different experience of facilitation as well. And I've got a little bit more school experience and a much more art and design. And yeah, we basically read the whole Key Stage 2 curriculum and then cured our square eyes, went for a nap. And then we made a big list of all the things that looked interesting off there, all the things that looked fun, all the things that looked important. And then we just started mushing them together and having a chat about it. And actually that conversation is really useful. And I would echo what Hephzi said as well about just taking action. So we also applied in the first place to be part of Essex 2020. That happened very quickly. We looked at it and thought, oh, that looks cool. I went to the launch event in Harlow that you spoke at. I came back to Georgia and was like, this looks like a good idea. Shall we have a crack at that? And she was like, yeah, okay. And it turned out very well. And obviously it's connected us to lots of wonderful other resources and other providers. So I think, get in touch with people.
Good. And I didn't pay you anything to say that. Thank you. Andy, you seem to have followed the design ideas of the young people you've been working with. A lot of what you've ended up doing seems to have come from them. Is that the case? Are they guiding you?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of other people have been talking about being cross-curriculum, and we've really embraced STEAM this year. It's been Essex 2020 Year of Science and Creativity. By meeting online and by having a new group of girls, we've had quite a wide range from 9 to 18. Some are beginners, some are just off to university now doing computer science. So we've had to really say, what are their interests? We couldn't teach them coding as a curriculum because there's such a wide age and ability. So it's really been, what have you been interested in? What do you want to do? And anyone can go on the Scratch website, I can put it in the chat in a bit, and create their own animations, games, stories. And I'll be sitting there and I'll be talking to people in a little Zoom thing, and I'll say, oh, we're doing something about whatever. And then I'll look later, and a few of them will actually have been sitting there whilst we're talking, multitasking, and they've created a little project based on what we've been up to. So certainly it's been driven by them. We've had a few things like the musical glove, So the musical glove, we had a 10-week course. We did 11, 12 weeks, and that was based on the microbit, and that followed videos, and that had handouts. We basically followed that through, but generally it's been what has interested you, what are you interested in, and how can we look at relating that to the wider aspects of things which are happening in the world and solving problems as well. So just back to where you can start. You can get microbits free in libraries as well, which helps as well. So people can pop out to their local library, borrow it for 3 weeks and renew it for, I think, 21 weeks.
I love the fact that microbits are still so widely used. People sort of sneered at them to begin with, or that they wouldn't work, but the fact that we're still advocating them and they're still available is fantastic. Right, we've got a question from Electric Voice Theatre that I'm going to bring out in a minute, and I know, Darren, you've got your hand raised. Thank you very much. I'm going to come to you shortly too. But Jamie, your question, where do you start?
Everything we do really is enabling young people to find a voice or find some way to tell some sort of story, whether that's engaging with computer game making, whether that's making films, whether that's writing a story, whether that's making an animation in some sort of way. We just give them the tools and the constraints to sort of, so this is what you've got to play with and this is how to use it. Now I want you to sort of be creative and try and do that, and then we just guide them through how they're going to make it. So it's always led, I guess, like many people are saying, through their ideas and what people want to do, and then we just provide people with the sort of tools to sort of say this is how you could craft it in that sort of way.
Thank you, fantastic. So Electric Voice Theatre themselves have been a big part of Essex 2020 with projects bringing together music and heritage, the history of female pioneering scientists, which has been great. Their question is a really important one about digital inclusion, was something I was going to bring up. Obviously lots of amazing ideas about things to do online, but what about those that can't access that? What about those that and we know that this is a real challenge in particular parts of the county where fewer than 50% of households might certainly have reliable internet access or any kind of device to do these things. Hephzi's idea of sending materials in advance, particularly for those that don't have printers and so on, fantastic, great. But is that scalable? How do you guys involve those that aren't going to be able to just nip onto a website, download something and get a microbit? Who wants to take that one first?
I'll just add to that. I was going to say the key is identifying in the first place those individuals who may be lacking access to online resource, lacking accessibility to get online, and it's finding those community groups and organizations that work specifically with these groups that we can perhaps partner with, so that we can reach them that way if it's delivering kits directly to them.
Sally, you want to say something?
Well, essentially the exact same thing. It's about finding out where those people are and engaging them. I think a lot of the resources that a lot of us have shared actually have quite practical applications, and we can send out materials, or we can say, well, use these materials that you're likely to have in your house, a cereal box or whatever, and we can send you instructions, we can send you a worksheet, we can organise something socially distanced in a public place and lead a workshop in a library or in your school, but it's finding those people in the first place.
I know that through the Digital Skills Partnership, there's 6 of those in the UK, but one of them covers Essex through the South East Local Enterprise Partnership. I know that they've been successful in drawing down some funding to distribute quite a few kits, laptops, devices, and so on to families that don't have them. And I think it's about joining that up, those schemes, with the sort of opportunities and the resources that you guys are providing as well. Was it Darren had your hand up? I'll bring you in now. If I can unmute your microphone. There you go. The floor is yours. Hello, Darren. Darren has disappeared. Okay, well, we'll come back to you if you want to come back in later. Roy has a question. How can some of these wonderful ideas and resources be introduced to those young people who don't have the family support or home resources to easily engage? So I think it's a development of that. It might not be just digital access. It might be in a way a kind of cultural access at home, or just a lack of enthusiasm for these sorts of things because they don't perhaps seem that familiar or that readily available. So again, maybe Adam, come to you. How does CSCS work to work with the households that don't normally engage?
Yeah, thanks, Richard. So yeah, this is a real problem, and it links to the conversation previously about digital inclusion. Essex has one of, if not the largest deprivation gaps in the country. So it's a real issue here where we are. I think a couple of things. So the point was made previously about identifying who are the at-risk individuals. That's absolutely key, number one priority. And one would hope that existing safeguarding procedures and so on go some way towards addressing that. But that will need to be revisited, and schools and other institutions will need to look at that in the light of how we're doing things now remotely, probably to extend the scope of that and identify people who are disadvantaged through lack of digital inclusion or home life conditions that aren't conducive to the learning that's necessary. So that's the first thing. I think then after that, there's a range of options. There's a number of things you can do. So certainly something we're looking at is a volunteer-led way to tackle that. Clearly, that's difficult during the pandemic and social distancing and lockdowns and so on. But it's not impossible. Volunteer groups do exist that have been set up during COVID to tackle the real basics, getting people food and supplies and so on. And I would argue access to an education is one of those real fundamental basics. It's a human right, some would say. I don't know if it's literally enshrined in our Bill of Rights, but it effectively is. And I, as a trustee of an education charity, would absolutely campaign for that. We can find ways to get, if necessary, volunteers into people's houses, or possibly operating in a socially distanced way, as Sally was alluding to. So the sort of things we do, obviously, aren't running at the moment, but things like workshops that take place out of the home are a good way of doing that. It helps bring in people who are perhaps homeschooled, and collaborations with other institutions such as universities and so on, who have both the resource and the skill, if you like, or the expertise in-house to deliver some of that. So I don't have an answer now, but I think there are some things we can do, and I think something we should look to be doing in the Essex 2020 legacy planning possibly is that part of it, and how do we really tackle that? Thank you.
Did anybody else want to pick up on that point before I move on?
Yes, Richard. So that's kind of an idea of how do we make things inclusive, and we consider that, and how do we make it more inclusive for girls as well as people who may not culturally be involved in science technology. So we've done things like the Basildon Street Science, and by bringing forward things like the STEAM, but also having the girls actually take part as the people who are running things, who are helping and doing the talks. We're trying to show, well, actually, it isn't just something which is for boys, it's for girls. Girls are good at this, and it's not just sitting on the computer. It might be musical glove, or it might be creating some cool robotic project or something like that. So covering quite a wide range of things, and also what's important to people. We had a lot of climate change things yesterday at the Chelmsford Science and Engineering Society, and when the Essex DMETs put their scratch posters up on in the shop windows, they really loved that, because people getting to see what they'd created, but also listening to them, listening to their voice, which was important to them. They hadn't really been listened to a lot as young 11 to 19-year-olds in terms of what was important to them, and that allowed them to create their own little projects. People, I put a few links, people have a little look, but the fact they're in the shop windows and in the cathedral, they love that really.
Brilliant, thank you. Yeah, Sally?
As a very small side note, Adam mentioned homeschoolers, and at Matipo we're really keen to hear from home educators because we were both home educated and it was wonderful. But we'd really like to engage them in some of our things that we do, because a lot of workshops and other provision are often geared towards schools, and home educators can miss out a little bit. So we'd like to hear from those people.
Brilliant. Related to that, I'm going to bring in Debbie from Essex Children's University, who wanted to talk a little bit about the digital after school club you've created for Essex 2020.
Yeah, thank you, Richard, and hello everybody. Children's University were very lucky to receive some funding from Essex 2020, and we used that funding to build on the learning challenges that children all across Essex had been seeking out for themselves, or that we'd been doing, setting for them at home, so that they could complement their school-based learning with self-led activities that they could do at home. So we created a Children's University virtual out-of-school club, conscious that schools in this autumn term wouldn't be running their after-school clubs and activities. We wanted to find a way to keep those children engaged in the ethos of out-of-school hours learning, and to keep them motivated to work towards Children's University awards. So I created a folder of 30 STEAM-based learning challenges. Those folders were sent out to 70 schools across Essex and Suffolk, and children were invited to be part of the Children's University Challenge Club, participate in these learning activities at home. They could use kit and equipment that they would have around their houses. There was certainly no need to have lots of specialist equipment. For those children that can't access IT, the schools could send home a paper copy. The idea being that for some of the children that we want to engage in all of the fabulous activities that they're doing, they're a bit frightened. They haven't really had an experience of coding, or the thought that they might become a STEAMette might terrify them. So the Children's University Challenges are designed to introduce them, and they were sort of at different levels depending on which age group, but to introduce them to the concept that they could do these STEM challenges at home. They bring their completed work to show their teacher in school, so it prompts a conversation about what the children have learned at home and where else they might access learning activities if they've got a particular interest in it. Then we're hoping that by the end of the autumn term, we'll have children who receive their first Essex 2020 STEAM certificate, which will encourage them to continue to access learning and to perhaps be a little bit braver and look beyond their own school or their own front room or their own community, and really start to access some of the phenomenal activities that your organisations are providing, but where family confidence isn't necessarily there to enable those parents to sign up. So early indications are, I think we've got about 600 children who've signed up from about 6 or 7 schools, I think. The registers are coming in daily. All of the challenges are on the Essex Children's University website. Sally touched on home educators. We work with home educators, and they've been using Children's University as a way to record some of the activities that they've been doing. But I've put the resources in the public domain. They're there for everybody to see. But for the Children's University member schools, it's a way for them to continue their after-school clubs offer without having to create a brand new system. So the folders we're a small charity. I can tell you that the folders have retained at least 4 or 5 of our schools who are going to step back for a year. So, you know, that's a massive benefit for us. And I think going forward, it's going to become part of our core offer, because the kids are absolutely loving it and the parents are really engaged. So anything that you're all doing, I know that I've promoted Matipo to my families. I know that I've promoted some of the STEAMettes activities to families. And I know that there have been some people who've picked up and participated, not a huge number, but a lot won't have the confidence to give it a go. But, you know, it's been a great opportunity to learn differently. And like somebody said, if we're sitting in a classroom in Essex, why wouldn't we take part in an after-school activity that's being delivered by somebody in Suffolk or Scotland? If you're running a workshop, Sally, why wouldn't you run your workshop for kids from 60 different schools rather than having to go into just one? So it's created a really exciting opportunity for us. So yes, just a lot of paper and a lot of stuffing, but it was worth it. So thank you.
Brilliant, Debbie. That's such a delight to hear. But I think what that exemplifies, as some of the other projects have done, is just the opportunities through bringing things together, you know, finding complementary offers and different parts of the sort of jigsaw. I think the tendency in times gone by has been to, you know, it's often hard to know what's going on, isn't it, in other areas. And I think, if nothing else, through Essex 2020, we've been able to shine a light on the sort of the vast range of things, and hopefully that leads to collaborations. I'm going to let's look ahead a little bit, perhaps. Then, you know, we know that all of these projects, as you know, as great as they are, have been developed at haste, you know, and out of a problem, a challenge, an immediate challenge. And I know that many teachers will still be problem solving, firefighting, working out what to do to meet the needs of the range of children and young people they're supporting. But without being a doomster and a gloomster, as Boris Johnson might say, I think it's fair to say that education's going to be somewhat disrupted for the next academic year, if not beyond. But are there things that are happening accidentally that are really great, that we can keep and build on? Are there things that are happening through your projects, through the collaboration, through the emergency kind of response, that actually is really exciting and is reaching people in a way that we haven't before, maybe with a tweak, maybe stepping back and looking at access and diversity and how do we make that better, but we can make it better. From an Essex 20 legacy point of view, I think there's a really big opportunity for us all to work together on what that looks like, and actually create some models that work across the county, across the country, internationally. You know, I'd love to, maybe Lefteris, maybe next year's Design Education Conference, we could all come along and talk about what we've achieved in the last 12 months. So I'm going to throw again that out to you all, and maybe I'll start with Jamie this time. What surprised you, or what's been unintentionally great about this that actually could be a model that we can scale up or do more of?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. There's been a lot of ways where we've really realised that how we can engage with a lot of people online and in different ways that we haven't done before. Like, one of the great things is that often a lot of our work revolves around people who are in the immediate area or people who are in the wider area, but mostly people that you know. These are the people that you often work with, and suddenly you're working with people who are halfway across the country. They could be in different countries through like other events that we run, like online networking, stuff like that. We've been able to pull in, you know, people who are in Greece doing workshops and stuff like that and coming for a quick chat. So I think now we've kind of locked down really good ways to communicate quite easily all the time online. There's no reason now why we can't be running more courses online. Even if we get back to normal, there's still an opportunity for people who can't normally get to us close to continue these sort of learning experiences from a distance, really. So I think that's something that should definitely continue.
Thank you. Hephzi, what about you? Is there anything? I know so much of your work relies on being outdoors with people in public spaces, but has there been anything in the adaptation that you think actually there's something new we can build here?
For us, I'd also definitely say it's opened up more partnerships. Though you're not restricted to your locality anymore, and in terms of reach. So that would definitely be the the new plus and bonus for us. I mean, we partner with people as far back in Wales and, you know, places that would inform partnerships and just due to distance and feasibility of events. So
Great.
that'll be it for us. Yeah.
Adam?
Yeah, I think two things really. From our perspective, what the pandemic has done is created a bit of breathing space, because the expectation of drumbeat of delivering events and doing things and you know, grinding the handle, if you like, fell away for a little while, for a few months. I mean, we're kind of back up to where we were now, but doing things online and doing things differently. And in that period, in that time, it allowed us, and I'm sure others, a bit of breathing space, a bit of thinking space. Where are we, you know, how are we going to adjust to this long term? Where are we going to go? And it's allowed us to kind of reform where we're going and what we're doing, and build stronger partnerships, as Hephzi just mentioned, with other organizations that we may not have had time to really service before, because we were too busy caught up in the day-to-day and the firefighting. And because everyone understands that we're all disrupted, that has created a little bit of a wiggle room, if you like, room to maneuver to do that, which has been really good. And then, yeah, on the sort of online aspect, you know, yeah, all this content has come about which wouldn't have done otherwise, and reach, you know, geographically and in other ways has extended, as has been discussed. I'd be interested to see what St. Berners-Lee thinks about all of this, because when he released the World Wide Web, you know, from CERN back in 1993, this sort of thing was exactly what it was all about. And I know that with COVID, we've had, you know, yet more problems on social media with misinformation and people kind of abusing the system. And that's a perennial problem. That's a human issue that's far wider than this conversation. But what I think, if we're going to take a positive from that, actually, there's been a bit of a resurgence in using the internet as that communication and that knowledge sharing and that bringing people together tool that we haven't necessarily before. And I think it's really thrown a light on it can be done, and a lot of investment has been made in making that possible.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant, thank you. Andy?
Two things really. One, the Essex DMETs have really blown us away with how amazing they've been, and lots of other organisations have really appreciated it. And they're basically like our staff, our core staff, where they'll be doing the talks, they'll be showing people, and it makes it a lot more accessible to a young person if you've got an 11-year-old girl explaining how things work, rather than, say, a scientist in a white coat standing there. And the other thing which we're going to do is we'll carry on doing our meetings remote. You know, we can't wait to get back, get hands on and do some robotics, but people can buy kit and we can work over Zoom, and Essex is quite big, so that allows us to have more people, and we don't have our own venue, so we have to book libraries or work with other partners or go to other places. So that allows us to just say, yep, we're going to do a meeting, or just off the drop of a hat to say, oh, a musical gloves come in, let's work on a musical glove project for 10 weeks without having to ask anyone. You know, they can get sent through the post and we can just go ahead with it. So we'll probably take a lot of what we've learned and carry on doing it, whereas previously we hadn't even considered doing online versions for all the problems which you would have imagined happened.
Thank you. I'm very conscious of time, and I've got a couple of very short things to wrap up with, but Lefteris, to you.
Yeah, I mean, as far as art and design education is concerned, I think we need to go from, just to move the R, from being reactive to being creative. Because a lot of the reactions, a lot of the solutions have been reactive. I mean, freelancers, we were using Zoom years before COVID, yeah? So it's not about Zoom, it's not about the distance, it's not about online. It's about the values of art and design education. Yeah, what are these values? And the variety of responses has been staggering. Yeah? So for example, Holland and Denmark right now are doing 100% physical COVID protected design education, and they're fine. So we need to really look at what do we need to teach? What is the message we need to transmit, and what are the values we need to show? Not what technology are we using. Yeah? So the technology is secondary to what to our message.
Absolutely, and I think never has there been a more acute kind of global example, perhaps certainly since the war, but in living lifetime, of how science, technology, engineering, the arts and mathematics have been used in very real time to try and solve this problem, this pandemic. And we've seen all of them, from communications to vaccinations to rapid new systems and infrastructure. What a great living example to show that sort of design in motion with young people. Sally.
Yes, I think from a Matipo perspective, everything that everyone has already said about people coming together and technology being used in different ways, it's all wonderful. I'd like to highlight actually something that the music service has been doing as well. And the music service has taken a large majority of its music lessons online. So we're trying to get them back into schools now. But right over lockdown, so many music lessons were taken online via Microsoft Teams. And that's actually something that we've been trying to think about and trying to implement for some time. And it gave us a shove in the right direction, that we had to implement that very, very quickly. And it was manic initially, but now we have that infrastructure. And students that, for example, might not have access to public transport and might not be able to get to music lessons in the past now can. So that's wonderful, and that's something that we want to keep doing.
Great, thank you so much. A huge thank you to all of our contributors this afternoon. You'll all agree with me, bring lots of different perspectives and expertise, but have really added something to the conversation there. So thanks so much to Lefteris, to Sally, to Adam, to Andy, to Hephzi and to Jamie. They'll all appreciate you following up with them, I'm sure, and they'll put their details in the chat bar if they haven't already, but all of their organisations and work are also accessible through the Essex 2020 website. So before we finish, I'm aware it's 6:30, but two very quick things. This has been a big education conversation, and this is a national movement to try and to create informal spaces where educators or people interested in education, or certainly the question of what is it we need to do to prepare better lives for young people. We're asking people if you've got something out of this event, or you thought that there's you've gone away with some provocations of what you might do or where you might take an idea. We would like you to run your own one. The idea is we want over time people to run their own big education conversations, picking a theme, getting some people together, bringing in some expertise or some provocations, and then taking it to action. And the idea is that things are place-based. It's about the future of young people, and it's also about the system of education itself. What can we do to make that better? So do have a look at bigeducationconversation.org. And I'd love to know if you've got any ideas of what might happen, and we certainly would like to have more of these as part of the next phase of whatever Essex 2020 becomes. Speaking of which, as I said, we are looking at the Legacy Project. We want to hear from you. We want educators, teachers, head teachers, teaching assistants, youth workers, lecturers, nursery nurses, etc., to be part of the conversation. So if you can email essex2020@alwayspossible.co.uk if you would like to be part of that, please do, and we'd like to convene some conversations with you.